program, which then used outsourced jobs for its call center. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I'm incredibly disappointed. Determined never let it happen again. It shouldn't have happened. We were unaware that this company would outsource these jobs. Perhaps we could have done a better job of vetting the company. But going forward, I can assure you that whenever we let a contract, we're going to ask the question very definitely. And any company that's going to outsource jobs using these resources or other state resources will not receive a contract from us.
Okay. So you're going to work pretty hard to ensure that doesn't happen
absolutely.
again.
I'm disappointed that it happened, and I'm determined that it will never happen again.
Okay.
Governor, this morning there's a report out that is the results of surveys that were sent to all counties throughout the United States of over 100,000 population.
Really?
And all cities in the United States over 25,000 population. Based on the results of this survey, the collective response was that there may be going forward here in the next year and a half, another 500,000 public officials that are going to be laid off from these respective jurisdictions. Given that Ohio has somewhere between 19,000 and 20,000 elected public officials, how much government do we need? Do you expect that we'll have more unemployed, but there'll be government workers that are going to downsize government? And is that what taxpayers really want?
Well, in Ohio, during my administration, we have already reduced the state workforce by something approaching 5,000 workers. Now, we did not do that joyfully. It was a serious matter because all those individuals represent not only individuals but families that need the work. We are facing in Ohio and across America incredibly difficult financial and budget circumstances. I do believe that we have reached the bottom of the recession and that we are in a time of recovery, but that recovery is occurring very slowly. And so depending on several factors, depending on, for example, whether or not we receive additional significant federal support, depending on whether or not the economy does in fact improve substantially in the next few months. All of those things, depending on whether or not we can find substantial efficiencies and savings. But I am not surprised by the information that you've shared with me. I think every sector of our nation, every state within our nation is facing perhaps unprecedented budget challenges, and it's going to require an unprecedented response from us, and that could very well lead to significant reductions in employment across all sectors, including the public sectors.
Governor, do you have any indication yet from the federal government whether there will be federal resources available to help fill this budget gap in the next biennium?
No, I'm joining with other governors to make those requests, but it looks difficult given the way the Senate has responded to increasing unemployment benefits, and they have yet to really substantially extend the federal share, the enhanced federal share for Medicaid. So those are not good signals coming from the federal government. But I think we've got to keep pushing because I believe we could experience a double-dip recession. I don't think we will. I hope we don't. But one way to guard against a double-dip recession would be to make sure that unemployment does not once again cascade downward, and that we or upward, and that we have significant job loss, which really has, in my judgment, a cascading effect. And so one of the ways we can prevent that from happening is to make sure that we're getting the resources we need from the federal government to help the states, which are mandated to have balanced budgets, and we have, as you know, limited resources. I think it's appropriate for the federal government to continue the help until this recession further lifts. Ohio was not responsible for this recession. This recession was caused by factors outside of Ohio, but we're having to deal with it. And so I think every other state is experiencing similar difficulties, some even more serious than Ohio's economy and our fiscal picture. If you look at California, if you look at Nevada, if you look at Florida, if you look at any number of other states, their fiscal circumstances are even more challenging than is Ohio's. So it seems to me appropriate for the federal government to continue to provide us some level of assistance.
As a quick follow-up to my first question, about 3 weeks ago, Director Savetti made a presentation before the new budget planning and management commission, and in her presentation, when in the pie chart that she showed about where state dollars go, she said about 85 cents out of every dollar really goes to subsidy.
That's right.
It flows out to local governments.
That's right.
And other folks.
That's
and
right.
that 15% runs all the state government.
That's right.
So as Republicans, those who want to consolidate to 11 departments or even eliminate everything, we can eliminate all of state government and still have this giant subsidy requirement.
Absolutely, and many citizens do not understand that. Most of the Ohio state budget goes to maintain Medicaid services, to pay for education at every level, to help local governments, and a relatively small percentage of it is used to operate state government. We could get rid of every state employee, and it would only have a modest impact upon the total budget. So, what we're doing right now, we are asking the Council of State Governments to help us look at our criminal justice system, because a lot of our budget goes to our institutional programs like prisons, jails, and youth services, and developmental centers, and so on. And another chunk of money obviously goes to education at every level, higher education as well as primary and secondary education, and then another big chunk goes to pay for Medicaid. If we do not impact significantly those three areas of significant expenditures, we really aren't going to have much of an effect upon the total budget. So there are some who try to pretend that by doing some painless things you can find a balanced budget even under these circumstances. I think it's impossible.
So my hardcore elected governor again, will you make any, recommend any policies that will reduce the flow of money to local governments, which will then necessarily have to reduce the number of public employees delivering whatever range of services?
Or require local taxes to be significantly raised.
Because that's how they'll have to balance.
That's right. People in Ohio want a certain level of public services available to them. They want public safety. They want our parks maintained.
But do they want 20,000 people, elected officials, delivering that, or can that be delivered with half that?
Well, I think we've already reduced so significantly that further significant reductions would be very difficult and would impact the quality of services that people expect to receive. So, I mean, the conversation that you and I are having is the kind of conversation that should be occurring between my office and the House and the Senate, the business community, the human service folks, and Ohio citizens. We need a serious discussion about how we're going to move forward. And we are going, obviously, to have to choose from a list of priorities those things that are of greatest importance. We may not be able to do everything. In fact, I think we cannot do everything, given the current circumstances. So that requires us to determine what is most essential and to use our resources to carry out those functions. That may mean that some worthy programs, some worthy activities would be at least temporarily curtailed.
Today